Thank you for coming today to the third SaaStock event on the topic of LinkedIn as a channel, how to grow and thrive. With us today is Vedran Rasic. He is the CEO and co-founder of LeadDelta, advisor at JobAt, the startup mentor, and he has a lot of other positions and a lot of other qualities as well. And we hope that he will share some of his knowledge with us today.
Hey guys, hey Pavel.
Hey there, thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing really well. It's around -5 here in Canada on the east side, and other than that, I'm pretty good. And I'm happy to be in Sarajevo even virtually for my second time in SaaStock.
Have you as well here. Thank you for joining us. So I'd like to kick off for starters. Could you tell us something about yourself, Vedran? I've given a short introduction, but I'm sure you will do a much better job of telling us about yourself.
I doubt that, but so currently, I'm based here in the capital of Canada. I'm running a startup called LeadDelta. We are a social capital manager, starting with a LinkedIn as a channel. So hence the topic. I'm super happy to share more about that and even my entrepreneurial journey, which started way back in Southeastern Europe some 10 years ago. And as a matter of fact, I had a really good reflection point this morning. I had a workshop on lean startups with 150 founders from the region. So I'm still pretty hyped from that workshop. So there you go.
Thank you. We hope you will tell us a bit about all of that, more or less as much as you can. So you mentioned LeadDelta. That's, I think, one of the focuses for today's online meetup. Could you tell us a little bit about it? What is it used for? How can it help others with their business and their activities?
No, absolutely. So one of the things we believe that no professional should start from an empty CRM. And we also believe that the future is warmer, which means that, climate change, yeah, not necessarily. What we believe is, is that the professionals, should be able to find the right signals in 2021 in order to reach out to somebody and to really match the expectations in that outreach instead of just blasting everybody with automation and outreach. So it's defined in the lean startup methodology, and how we approach the project is we wanted to start with something tiny, something tangible, right? And we said, well, LinkedIn is probably one of the best platforms out there to meet other professionals, to exchange advice, and to pitch. Why not, right? So we said, okay, so what's missing? And we didn't want to go the classical automation route, which is where most of our other incumbents went. And is probably not aligned with the LinkedIn's policies. What we wanted to do is basically build a couple of utility type of features, such as tagging, leaving notes on your connections, more powerful filters, things like that, and basically allowing you to own your data and to ship it whatever you want. So all your first degree connections, think of them as your business cards. Right. So imagine if someone says you can't take your business cards with you. It's kind of, doesn't work that way. So we want to build a tool that allows entrepreneurs, digital creators, CEOs to actually own their data and have a better outreach and thus growth. Right. So that's
Let me then ask. So essentially, networking is very important. Could you tell us why is, let's say, maybe especially today, why is networking so important for everyone? Maybe not just for entrepreneurs, but for everyone essentially.
Yeah, I would ask our listeners, at this very moment, or in the future listeners, reflect on the job you managed to get, reflect on the talent you hired. Reflect on your first sales deals. It was usually through your network. Typically, that's how it starts. So my assumption is, we're in 2022. There's so many databases out there, a lot of data just sitting out there doing nothing. I hope over the course of the next 2-3 years, that we'll be able to bridge those databases and allow you, Pavel, and other colleagues of ours to basically figure out the insights inside your network. For instance, if you see that so let's say you see in your network that like top 5 engineers are changing their job descriptions and moving into a startup that just raised money. And they're really good engineers, and you kind of know them, right? So that might be an insight that you also might want to invest in that company, because like the best talent is moving there, right? So and you, as someone who's offering certain services or a product, you want to be there right then and there, right, when it's happening. So that could be one type of a signal. Another type of a signal could be a person that continuously writes about something that your business solves for or cares about, etc. So then when you reach out, it is cold, quote unquote. It's a cold outreach. However, there's a very specific reason why you're reaching out.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So essentially, you need some special forces at the beginning that will help out with everything that will go good. Great. I've also checked out, been a bit free, and I've checked out a little bit your LinkedIn profile to see what I can find there and what I can see. You had a lot of experiences before. One of the experiences that I've seen that maybe it's not, I can't say that it's not professional, it's the volunteering experience in ISAC. I've also been a member of ISAC, not that long, a couple of months, but I'm also personally interested, and a lot of our viewers are surely interested in how was that experience for you, and how did that volunteering experience help you out?
Absolutely, that's a great question. I haven't came by this question in a while. So I think it was a life-changing experience, in all honesty, right? Like I'm a kid from a small town. I went to university. I expected to see American movies, like throwing hats and studying in the library. What it turned out to be is basically a whole bunch of lectures and no actionable items. And so I said, I want to do something for real, right? And I saw these guys traveling the world, starting up little projects, events, bringing people together, teaching, learning, all that type of stuff. And I was like, well, I can do that too. So I applied, I went through the organization. And just recently, I was actually writing about the experience for the first time publicly, because, for instance, CEO of Snowflake is an ISAC alumnus, and he's been part of ISAC Rotterdam. I think it was 1990s or late 1980s, something like that. And so I was like, holy, this is awesome. Because a lot of people when we move ahead in our careers, and let's say we have 2 or 3 major successes, we delete everything else, and then we want to be remembered by these 2 or 3 big chunks. And I hate that. I love telling people, if I can do it, you can do it too, right? So I love to portray that whole experience journey, so that younger folks can make the right decisions if they want to choose a certain path. So yeah, it was a life-changing experience for me. ISAC, definitely great organization.
Tell me also, what would be, let's say, 3, as you say, you changed your life, but what would be 3 things that you learned then that you managed to apply in the future?
So 3 things that I would point out. There are many, right? So first, you learn. Too many. You learn that university is not only about parties and figuring out your way in the world, but it can be that, and it can be work, and it can be applicable. Learning on the field. It can be leading people that are a bit younger or even older than you. Following others, basically finding your way within these different structures and figuring out how can you be a productive citizen. And another thing I think that it taught us, so basically operating on different levels of any organization, right? So that's the first big lesson. The second big lesson I'd say is the values it instills in you. I wouldn't be an entrepreneur as I am today if there weren't for ISAC, even though ISAC would be closer to a corporation than to a startup, because it's been around for too many years.
70, if I'm not around 70 years. 70, yeah. Okay, nice.
So, but still, you can be an entrepreneur and not be in a startup. You can be an entrepreneur in a corporation, right? All you need is an uncertainty and willingness to create a new project to solve a problem, right? In an uncertain environment. So that's the kind of definition of being entrepreneurial. So you really quickly learn the global issues and you kind of want to address them. For example, like what's currently going on in the world right now. Like we for sure we're not going to go deep into that because it's a whole nother subject. But for instance, like I could not press a send button on my newsletter without addressing it in some way, right? And needless to say, what I'm doing privately, that's beyond the scope. But what I'm trying to say, it instills in you that you're a global citizen, right? And that whatever happens, wherever it happens, it impacts you as well. So so you kind of naturally, and this is the third thing, you kind of naturally want to go in and lead, and you want to create, and you want to follow whatever it's necessary, right? It doesn't really matter. But that's the third thing, which is being active.
Thank you for saying that. Especially, there's very interesting being a leader, not just a boss. That very, very important in today's time. Thank you for that. Now, let's thank you for sating my curiosity as well. Nice again, viewers. But let's get back to LeadDelta as well. How did the idea come about?
That's a great question. Like I said, it started with an assumption, an idea.
Lightning go.
Yeah, exactly. Lightning strike. No, it actually. So the previous business, I was also in B2B SaaS, selling to businesses in the software as a service industry, and we had a success. We had an exit, and I was personally. We spent a whole bunch of time on LinkedIn, right? And it worked really well until at some point, spraying and praying just didn't work, right? And people started complaining and telling me that, and I'm like, yeah, I don't like it either. Like, I don't like when someone writes me a wall of text and expects me to respond back. Like, nobody has time for that, and it's not even relevant. So how do you combat that? So I said, LinkedIn is a great platform, right? And it has so much data, such a huge, platform and network. However, it's also a big company, and it's hard to innovate. Like naturally, when you're that big, every single movement makes a huge difference. So I said, I really wanted to help make that LinkedIn community better with our first iteration of the product, which still to date we have. So so that's what we did, and I think we're doing it really well. We don't automate, we don't scrape, we don't do any undesired behavior. However, we try and provide value on top of LinkedIn as a community and as a platform. So that's the idea came out of a problem that we've seen firsthand.
Very good, very good. So filling a need, essentially. Very nice.
Yes. Yeah.
Very nice. Could you tell us also? So we mentioned LinkedIn. LinkedIn is very important, more or less. It's the professional social.
Facebook. Yeah, it's for sure that.
Could you compare perhaps LinkedIn to Twitter and some other networks of that type? What would you mention for those differences?
So there's a huge difference, right? So there's apparently one thing that's interesting on Twitter, on Reddit as well. You can be anonymous, right? You can have XYZ at XYZ, right? And nobody knows who you are, and you can just talk all you want, right? And usually, what tends to be amplified more on Twitter is it's kind of more what people would address as kind of negative kind of comments and kind of sarcasm, like short kind of meaty short sentences kind of type of thing. On LinkedIn, on the other hand, right? On LinkedIn, on the other hand, you also have like a lot of fluff, right? So there's people like, oh, today I had a worst day of my life. Punchline, right? Then the second one, the third one, and so on LinkedIn you have the
those daily routines, like
like you have these vulnerabilities, and it's basically you have these kind of people with like being overly too emotional, as some would say. So, but I think the best creators use both platforms to their benefit to amplify how they really feel about things, what they think. They provide strategies, they provide tactics, and then you just adjust to a format. And on LinkedIn, you kind of have some kind of a long type of format, which, like I said, a punchline. Then people are like, let's see more. It's kind of on both LinkedIn and Twitter, you can be a tiny media company and within like 20,000, 50,000 people type of community, right? And I've seen great changes, right, in perception of people who are following you, great changes in their actions. And I have to say, sometimes it's even scary, right? Because people think, and you for sure sometimes feel as an imposter, right? And so I think that's normal for as long as there's a nice balance of a creator and his or her audience, where, for instance, I would never say things that I don't believe in, or just because they're going to go viral. And so what happens?
Do you mean on LinkedIn or in general also?
Or in general, but on LinkedIn and Twitter specific, right? It's a different format. On Twitter, it's kind of shorter. We know the tweet storms do a lot better. So it's kind of very similar to LinkedIn if you want. It's just like a different type of audience, and you kind of have to adjust the content. But what I'm getting to is I think creators should think long term, and instead of doing like these daily newspaper type of stories and punchlines and whatnot, they should think long term. And I'll give you an example. So when I started LeadDelta, a guy approached me who's been a growth marketeer, and he literally said, "I've been following you for 5 years. I've never seen the guy. We messaged each other, but he never followed my content. He never left comments or anything. He was what you would say a lurker, right? He was following, but not following, right? Not leaving any feedback." So, and so he said, he literally figured out my persona, what I'm doing, how I'm doing, and he figured out that he wants to work with me on this project. And he also figured out, some potential tensions between me and my back then boss. And I'm like, how the hell can you conclude that?
I'd be scared. I'd be a little scared as well.
Yeah, a little scared, because he was like, no, because he was like, he didn't say like, it wasn't that obvious, but he said something along the lines, well, you have totally different personalities. How do you put up with that? And I'm like, holy crap, how did you figure that out? Well, I've been following you both for years. I love your content. And I don't, and I'm like, wow. So what I'm trying to say is publishing content is a lot more and can be a lot more, and you get a lot of opportunities. But then as a creator, you really need to be the one who knows when to say yes and when to say no to opportunities, so that you don't stretch yourself too thin, right? Because I'm telling you, both LinkedIn and especially LinkedIn, you have a crazy reach. So my posts reach over 1 million views over a course of a year. So. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I'd like to get back to one thing. You mentioned a very, very interesting thing, creators. For example, for me, I'd always go for content creators for YouTube, maybe for, I don't know, platforms like that. But very interestingly, you mentioned in the context of LinkedIn. Let's say, what would be some interesting, what could you tell me about, or also our viewers about that, content creation on LinkedIn, and better said, quality content creation on LinkedIn?
So I have a contrary opinion there. Usually the advice is figure out who you want to create for, figure out the ideal customer profile, and then go right for them, figure out their problems and go right for them. And essentially what the advice is build your niche, document it, and then write for these people. My story is a bit different. So I say document your journey and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis, share the lessons learned, failures, successes, sometimes promote your project if you believe in it, and if you're doing it, why not promoting it? And then the niche will evolve by itself. So I'm writing about founders' experience in a 0 to 1 startup. I'm writing about sales. I'm writing about marketing. I'm writing about how we conduct product sprints, things like that. And so I've connected to a whole bunch of SaaS people and CEOs and whatnot. And I'm not thinking short term, like what can get me the most dollars today, right? I'm thinking like long term, who I want to surround myself by, and what content, what do I enjoy sharing, right? Is my strategy. And so, and I'll give you one also example, because, in LeadDelta, you can actually export all your connections with their data and whatnot. And so I filtered out my connections to people who can really benefit from LeadDelta and power networkers and whatnot. And so I sent them an email, and the email was overwhelmingly positive. People came back, bought the product, shared the product. And one person in particular, she was like, why are you sending me this email? Like, why do I care to read this email and whatnot? And I'm like, and in all honesty, in every respect, she would have been right if I kept following up, bothering people and whatnot. But if I cannot share that I just launched my business, and my product, and it's super relevant to you, and you don't want to, don't want to say congrats or like perfect, not interested at the moment, or not say anything. I mean, honestly, why do I even have you in the network? If you know what I mean, right? And it's, I'm totally against spam. But like, if I just want to shout it from the rooftop, say, hey guys, like I just built a business and I'm paying people, and I'm building this product and it's relevant for you, or I at least think, tell me you're not, this is not relevant for me. Like, I don't want to hear from this product, but congrats, kudos to you, right? So honestly, I disconnected with that person. I was like, I apologize. I really didn't mean to disturb you with this, right? I just wanted to brag a little bit, get some early support and help and fans and feedback. If this was irrelevant for you, I mean, and in all honesty, like, I don't even know why we should be a connection, in all honesty, right? If you cannot text me every once in a while, once a year, about something exciting you're working on. Am I wrong on that? I'd love to hear in the comments from people watching this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We also had a very interesting question here. What from Srijan Sukara? Okay, thank you for your question, Srijan. And the question is: biggest challenge LeadDelta faced in 2021.
Oh yeah, so the big challenge. So the big challenge, we had multiple, right? Sometimes. So I'll give you a fun one, the brainiac one, right? Like the fun one was that we had a lot more demand for the product than our platform was able to handle. Like the platform went down a couple of times; it was too slow, and things like that. I'm sure our buddy Nerman is thinking about this and how he could help. But in all honesty, I think that was one of the issues. Then at some point when we switched from unlimited lifetime deals in November to subscriptions, like that was, how do you bridge the gap? How do you tell people, okay, now you actually have to pay every month for the product, right? All of you guys that were lucky enough to support us from the beginning, good for you. But now, our business is expanding, and now we need to, make that change. So that was another big thing that came up. And so, but yeah, like, I mean, every day there's a problem, but those would be like the two different challenges we had, one on the product side, one on the growth side.
Thank you for that. Well, if there weren't any problems, it wouldn't be worth it in the end.
Exactly.
Tell us also, how hard was it at the beginning, not just for LeadDelta, but let's say for your whole journey, more or less, and what could you tell about that?
Well, it's hard every day, right? I mean, in all honesty, so tomorrow I have a whole bunch of interviews. We started the paid internship program, and we'll have a whole bunch of interviews. And if I hope some of the candidates are listening. So the first 20% of that interview session, especially because it's juniors, right? I'm going to keep talking about the problems in the startup, and so some find that counterintuitive, but I know we're going to go into many market startup battles, right? And I need the right people, the right mindset, because you need to be a little bit crazy to be part of a startup, right? For sure, there's a huge reward at the end of the journey, but you might never get there. So it's, you have to be a little bit like, crazy to want to do something like this. And it was always hard for me, right? Like obviously coming from a country that I'm coming from, Serbia originally, and the whole region, obviously with all the issues we've had, you didn't have that many entrepreneurs. Well, we were all entrepreneurial, but not as not in the sense of startups and technology. And I keep reminding people, like Steve Jobs had access to chips, and he helped produce the initial computers in the 60s, 70s. I mean, what are we talking about? Like, I didn't have my first computer until I was like 14, 15. So what I'm trying to do, say it again?
I agree completely. Same thing.
You know what I'm talking about. So it was extremely hard. And, my parents weren't entrepreneurial. They were entrepreneurial for their lives, but not entrepreneurial for building businesses and making more money. And so probably the grit comes from there, but obviously lots of challenges and missing basics, one-on-ones in the beginning. So yeah, that's what I'd reflect on.
Excellent. You mentioned 101s. What 101s could you give to our viewers now?
Well, so it's funny. We just literally went over that. So in the previous workshop. So I think the most important thing, like, how do you operate a startup? Like, if you're not like building the next search engine, like, or but even if you are, right? Like, how do you operate a startup? Well, tiny. Like, don't have, you know, month-long debates. Don't have, long ass messages to your colleagues, workers or whatever you want to call people around you, fellow co-founders, whatever. Don't like don't overthink the strategy, right? Like, do everything opposite. Do everything in a tiny bites, so that you can get that feedback loop instantaneously, right? So basically, what with lean startup in the lean startup methodology, right? You have build, measure, learn type of a spinning wheel, where you start with an idea, you go on as quickly as possible, you build a prototype, you measure the results, you promote and obviously measure the results, and then you get some learning points, go over it again, and you should do it on a weekly basis. Like, we're second year in. I started full time since October, since I left my contractual duty in a previous company. So I went all in, and basically, but even since the beginning, we shipped something new every week, both on the marketing growth side, both on the product side. So this is the best way to keep competition at bay, no matter how much money they have, and this is the best way to keep customers excited. So this is my one-on-one tip that people tend to miss, right? We want to spend 3 years building a product, and then in 3 years, like, there are tectonic shifts on the market, and you guys should know it the best, right? Because I was in building products for others before, and it's just insane, right? Like, people just keep wanting more features, more things, but there's nobody using it. So, anyways, that is the biggest mistake, I'd say.
I agree. Sometimes even the best products can't win against the products that hit the market early.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Spot
are
on.
lessons from history. I believe also IBM had a situation like that some 30 years ago, but don't remember that good. Oh, wow.
I don't know, actually.
Yeah. Tell us also, so you've been in the B2B business also. The last project you've been, as you mentioned, that project is called AutoClose, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken. Could you tell us something about that as well?
no, absolutely. So one interesting thing about both projects, both AutoClose and LeadDelta, is that both projects entered a, relatively speaking, I should have used this term. I think it was a, relatively speaking, saturated market, right? What does that mean? A lot of products on the market. Now if you think LinkedIn, like, there's probably like over, like, I think there's for sure 200 apps like doing something on LinkedIn. For sure there's a lot of email outreach companies, and now they're all multi-channel and things like that. So how do you, I think the key point for our listeners is, like, how do you differentiate? How do you prove and show that you're different, right? And for AutoClose, we created the stickiness by providing the engine, which is the email automation engine, and then the data, right? Because the engine has to run on fuel, and what's the fuel is the data, right? So we provided those two, and while some of our competitors risked and went multi-channel and wasted, invested in that engine expansion, we doubled down on a niche market, which is people that want a state-of-the-art email automation platform. And so that's what we did, and it helped us all the way through till the exit. So what I did with LeadDelta, everybody said, well, I'm going to go scrape the data. Oh, well, I'm going to go automate. I said, no, I'm going to do the opposite. So basically, as a result, we ended up being number one extension for LinkedIn in like a few months, just because we positioned differently. If you look through the list, there are no companies focusing on what we focus on. Everybody else is focused on, like, automation, follow-ups. Everybody's copying each other, and so it's not a problem when you enter the saturated market. That's not a problem. And I'm speaking both for AutoClose and LeadDelta. So the sweet spot that you want to get is that people really clearly understand how different you are, and that's part of the branding story narrative, and not doing what everybody else is doing. So
exactly, filling the need, always filling the need or solving problem.
Yes,
So,
and one other thing that I just add is you for sure know that there's money in that market. If there are that many competitors, you for sure know that there's money. You just need to find your game.
nice. That will help out our viewers as well. Thank you for that lesson as well. Tell us also, how would you like to see B2B evolving? What, or better said, even what do you predict any changes, or what changes do you predict? And give us a take on that.
So, so actually, I like the first part of the question, which is what would you love to see? So, what I'd love to see is that we all, as professionals, that we use data a bit better. So instead of me having to go in and like do 10 clicks in Salesforce, HubSpot, Pipedrive, you name it, LeadDelta, Slack, whatever, we get more intent. So more data served wherever we are. For instance, if I'm in Slack, I want to be able to see, actionable items in my Slack. If I go to my Gmail, I want to be able to see it there as well. So what I'm trying to say, I'd love to see more connection between the tools, less software, because I think we're now at that inflection point where there's just too many clicks to achieve certain things, and now we want to solve it with keyboard shortcuts and whatnot. But I think all we need is just the right information that an engine, middleware can spit out based on all the data. Because just think about it. We're a small startup. I have data in Google Forms. I have data in my HubSpot. I have data in my LeadDelta. I have data in Slack. I have data in our support system. And I can go on, and none of that data communicates in a perfect manner. And so you have companies that are really successful, like Segment, acquired by Twilio. So there are companies like that are helping you bring all those events together. But I think we can go a step further. And that's the automation I'd like to see. I don't want to see automation where I can message the whole world about LeadDelta, because the whole world does not care or does not need LeadDelta. But I care about just the right people. I care about my 5,000 customers market. That's it. When I win them, I'll expand my product and go to the next 10,000, to the next 100,000, right? But for that, you need tools. And data is already there. Data already exists. So that is the number one thing that I'd like to see. What I see happening, I see community. Community is a big trend. And apparently it's been here for forever, right? And it's just a different iteration. So I see that coming. I see that a lot of startups are now trying to build on Web 3.0. However, in my opinion, the most successful ones will be those that acknowledge that there needs to be a bridge between 2.0 and 3.0. Those that say that everything is garbage and we should all move into crypto and Bitcoin and blockchain, I think those will fail if they don't change that type of behavior. There needs to be a transition, much like there was a transition from the stationary computers and machines in the offices on premise, right? On prem versus software as a service. So there needs to be a bridge. And the third trend that I'm seeing, and I'll stop there. The third trend that I'm seeing is a business model trend. I see that B2C2B is becoming ever so more popular, because more and more people have credit cards to purchase with. When I say credit cards, businesses give them like $5,000 to spend a month, and people equip themselves with tools. Then they sell that into their departments. Then my sales guys come in and try and close the whole company, right? Kind of B2C2B approach is kind of more popular than ever. So yeah, those are a couple of things.
Very interesting. Very well. The future will be interesting in any case. That's for sure. That's for sure. But it always comes down back to connections, to marketing, and how that works. Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very good. Did you want to say something else? Also.
Yes. It's just basically being visible in the crowd is always, call it marketing, call it sales, call it growth, call it whatever. But it's just being how do you get seen in the crowd of lookalike solutions.
Very nice. How to be that flamingo among.
Yes.
Very, very good. Very good. Very good. Tell me also, have you guys used, so we've talked a lot about LinkedIn. We've mentioned also that it's good to use Twitter in the best possible ways. What other channels have you guys used for your business? Or better said,
Um,
what channels have you used for your business?
in all honesty, for the past 3 years, for me, it's all been around email and LinkedIn. So those are the two primary channels that we focus on. In my other startups that I advise, there's depending on different needs. We would go Reddit. Today I actually had a really interesting chat with a guy who's trying to make better chemistry classes online and building software for that. So like, do you find these people on LinkedIn? You know what? To an extent, right? Because they're also human beings, so they're social. So they probably have some social media, so you can for sure find them online. But different businesses have different channels, and for us, we got to be on LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn has to be our top. Like we have to be everywhere on LinkedIn, in my mind, where people discuss, how do I better manage the inbox? How do I better manage all the spam and noise that I have? Like, how do I structure my days? How do I stay on top of my network so I don't miss opportunities to get helped, um, hire, find a job, whatever, right? Whatever it is that I'm trying to get from my network, like I want to be there. So for us, we focus. We gotta be laser focused on that. In this, at least with this product that we currently have.
Yes, I agree completely, especially with today's, let's say, modern society with notifications on all sides, even focusing on a single thing without getting a notification on the side that isn't that, well.
Oh, it's a serious problem.
Exactly.
If there was a pill for that, I would take it. We all need the digital detox.
The only solution, going to a cabin in the woods and
you know what? And you're right. Like for instance, my co-founder and I, like we like to, I like to, like I personally like to go into the nature, and my wife is also, she's very outdoorsy type of a person. So this is the only way I'm not on a computer, because if I'm in the house, if I'm around my computer, I naturally just want to do work. Like I want to see what my teammates are doing. Like if I can help them anyhow, like customers, like trying to do something new. But the best ideas come exactly when I'm away from my computer or mobile phone. And so, I love doing that. I love mountain biking. If you're really like going through some obstacles in the mountain, like it's not a life or death situation, but you can get yourself seriously injured if you're not paying attention. So you literally have no choice. You have no choice but to actually perform. And so, you know what? Like I don't think about work when I'm on my mountain bike. So that's my strategy to tune out.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, then. Tell us, let's see. So here's also one question that I would like to ask that will probably be relevant for our users, and it's relatively connected to networking as well. What would you say about comparing soft and hard skills? What would you say? How is it just important today in modern society to have some hard skills, some, let's say, coding or something like that? And can such a person compete with, let's say, let me use the word average maybe, but very connected person?
So, I think it's a great question. And so, how I think about startups, I'll start with that, and then I'll answer directly. So, you have production, and you have growth or business operation, and so one cannot go without the other. Rare are the instances. So, same thing in one's life. Rare are the instances where someone has social skills and social skills only, and I mean, for sure, maybe you can organize some top-notch parties and like, but then that's your hard skill. You're really good at organizing, like hosting parties, right? Like that's your hard skill. So what I'm trying to say, like you gotta have a mix of both, right? Like you don't need to necessarily code. I know a lot of people who are like, oh, screw this, like business is just talking BS, right? I want to learn how to code, and then they go and spend like 6 years in sabbatical learning how to code. I'm not saying that's not good. That's admirable, but it's not necessary. there are other hard skills that you can acquire that are maybe more natural to you than are to others. And both personas are needed. So I think combining your hard skills with soft skills is perfect. And I think Tim Ferriss put that out. There's a YouTube video on that. So he's suggesting. So let's say you're a designer. Let's say you're a UX designer, and you're really good. In order for you to become number one, top 1% in the world in UX design, you have to work your ass off to achieve that, or you can learn another hard skill. For example, you can learn how to really communicate well, like to be a really effective communicator. When you pair those two skills, you can more easily get to that 1% than anybody else. So that's, I think, a winning formula.
Excellent. Thank you, Vedran, for all the knowledge that you've shared with me, with us, with all the users.
Absolutely.
Now we are also running out of time a little bit, but I believe you have a small surprise for everyone that maybe you'd like to share.
Yeah, absolutely. So last time I was in Sarajevo, I didn't do anything. So I was like, I think some 4 months ago, SaaStock as well. It was a launch of SaaStock, and I said this time around I want to do something special. So here it is. So only today, if you guys decide you want to test out LeadDelta, you want to give it a try, I'm willing to really go down on a discount. So we'll give you 50% off, and not only that, but you will remain grandfathered in on 50% off on an annual basis. All you need to do is type in the Sarajevo 3 code, which I think someone is posting it already. And we're limiting it only to 10 codes because this is not our official promotion. Usually we do 4 months off on an annual basis, but this will give you like a 50% off, and it's only for first 10 codes, and it expires tonight. So we'll have different promotions throughout the year, but this is definitely one that we won't have again because it's a substantial discount, and I owe it to you from the last time. So there you go.
Lovely. Thank you, Vedran, and guys, be sure to catch up on this offer. Okay, tell us, Vedran, do you have any other closing words that you'd like to share?
For sure. It was always awesome talking to you guys. I think you're doing an amazing job at Ancora and at SaaStock Sarajevo. I think I'm so happy that you guys have the franchise. You brought it home to Sarajevo. Other than that, reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter. It's my first name, last name, and I'm sure there's not a lot of Vedrans out there. So do reach out. And also, if you guys want, we have different resources specifically for LinkedIn. We have an ebook, called the 50/50, templates that you can use to up your game in 2022. Whether you're hiring, whether you're selling, don't copy it one-to-one, but use it as your inspiration. We've used most of these templates on a daily, regular basis, so now we're giving it to you guys. So feel free to fetch it.
Lovely. Thank you, Vedran. And for all of our viewers, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Thank you for, learning with all of us today. This was the third SaaStock event on the topic of LinkedIn as a channel, how to grow and thrive. But we kind of expanded on that topic as well a little bit throughout the session. And thank you one more time, Vedran, for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you, Paolo, so much, and for the organizers. Thank you, guys. Awesome being here again. Thanks.
You're right.